Sir Rowan rode through the jagged mountains of the alien world, his armor clinking softly with each step. The sky was a deep purple, streaked with bright orange clouds, and the wind carried a strange, electric smell. He had been sent to explore this planet, searching for resources for the human colony, but the place felt alive in a way that made his skin crawl. Every rock, every shadow seemed to watch him. He tightened his grip on the hilt of his energy sword and moved carefully. The stories of alien dragons had sounded like myths, exaggerations meant to scare young soldiers. But Rowan had learned to never underestimate any threat. Still, nothing in his training could have prepared him for what came next. A shadow passed overhead, moving faster than any bird or aircraft he had ever seen. Rowan froze and looked up. A massive dragon, larger than a building, swooped down from the sky. Its scales shimmered with colors he had never seen, metallic blues, reds, and greens that seemed to shift with the light. Its eyes glowed with intelligence, almost like it could see into his mind. Rowan's heart raced. He raised his sword, ready to defend himself, but the dragon was too fast. With one flap of its massive wings, it knocked him off his feet, and before he could react, a net of glowing energy shot out from its claws, wrapping around him like a cage. The energy burned slightly, but not enough to injure him. It held him firmly, lifting him into the air. He kicked and struggled, but it was useless. The dragon's grip was too strong, its strength unimaginable. Rowan could only stare in awe and fear as it rose higher, carrying him toward a distant floating fortress made of crystalline structures that glowed softly in the strange light. He tried to speak, to reason with the creature, but the dragon only let out a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through his chest. As they approached the fortress, Rowan noticed more dragons, smaller but equally powerful, patrolling the sky and the floating platforms. Their wings beat in perfect rhythm, creating wind that tore at his armor. He realized they were organized, intelligent, and possibly even aware of each other's thoughts. This was not just an attack. It was a coordinated operation. The dragon carrying him landed on a broad platform, and the energy net released him gently, letting him fall to his knees. Rowan scrambled his feet, sword ready, but the dragon did not attack. Instead, it lowered its massive head, and for the first time, he saw the alien intelligence clearly in its glowing eyes. It was studying him, as if deciding whether he was a threat or a curiosity. Other dragons circled above, their wings creating gusts of wind that made it hard to stand. Rowan realized he was outnumbered and outmatched. Every instinct told him to fight, but every moment of observation told him that brute force would not work here. He needed a plan, but he had only moments to think before the dragons decided what to do with him. Suddenly, a beam of light shot down from the fortress, creating a holographic map of the planet around him. Rowan's eyes widened. The dragons were not only intelligent but technologically advanced. They could communicate, strategize, and monitor the entire planet. He felt a thrill of fear and excitement. Humans were clever, yes, but these creatures were something else entirely. One of the dragons stepped forward, its claws clicking against the crystal floor. It exhaled a low hum that resonated in Rowan's chest, and suddenly he could hear voices in his mind. Not words exactly, but images, emotions, and ideas. They were speaking telepathically. He understood enough to know they were asking why he had come here, what he wanted, and whether he posed a danger. Rowan swallowed hard. He had faced tough enemies before, but nothing like this. He focused, sending a calm thought. I mean no harm. I am exploring. I am human. The dragon's eyes narrowed, glowing brighter, and Rowan felt its response. Curious, but dangerous. Must decide. The tension in the air was unbearable. Rowan's hands were steady, but his heart pounded. He knew the dragons could end him with a single thought, a single flap of their wings. Yet, he also realized something important. They were intelligent, and intelligence could be reasoned with, challenged, or even respected. Humans might not have wings, claws, or alien energy, but they had something dragons did not: adaptability, courage, and quick thinking. As the dragon stepped closer, Rowan readied his sword, not for attack, but for defense. He needed to show strength, yes, but also respect. One wrong move could mean death. He took a deep breath and nodded slowly, hoping the dragon would understand his intention. To his surprise, the dragon let out a low, almost approving rumble, and turned, signaling the others. The group moved as one, leading Rowan deeper into the fortress. He realized he was a prisoner, but not in the usual sense. He was being studied, observed, and perhaps judged. This was a capture unlike any other, an encounter with a species so advanced and intelligent that every action mattered. As they moved along the glowing corridors, Rowan's mind raced. He had survived battles, storms, and hostile planets, but nothing had ever challenged his mind and spirit like this. He knew he had to stay calm, learn quickly, and look for an opportunity. Humans were not the strongest creatures, but they were clever, adaptable, and courageous. That could be enough to survive, even here among alien dragons. Rowan glanced at the dragon beside him, its scales shimmering in the light, its eyes watching him with curiosity and caution. A spark of determination lit within him. I will survive this. I will learn. I will find a way. And as the fortress doors closed behind them, locking him in, Rowan realized that the real adventure had just begun. Sir Rowan was led into the heart of the Dragon Fortress, a massive chamber floating high above the alien planet. The walls were made of translucent crystal, glowing softly with strange colors that shifted like fire. Beams of light moved across the surfaces, creating patterns that seemed alive. The air hummed with energy, making his chest tingle. Rowan realized this was not a prison in the usual sense. It was a combination of art, technology, and power designed to contain him and also test him. He knelt when the dragons indicated, their glowing eyes fixed on him. They hovered, circling slowly above the ground, wings creating gusts that lifted his hair. Rowan took a deep breath and looked around. The chamber was enormous, and from the ceiling hung floating platforms connected by bridges of light. He could see alien devices moving silently, scanning the floor, the walls, even him. Every step he took was watched. For a moment, fear gripped him. These creatures were not only powerful, but highly intelligent. They could think faster than any human, anticipate moves, and read emotions in a way that felt invasive. But Rowan reminded himself that humans had a different strength. They could adapt, improvise, and outthink opponents when the moment demanded it. That thought gave him courage. A dragon stepped forward, larger than the others, its scales reflecting the light in shimmering blues and greens. It exhaled a low, vibrating hum, and Rowan felt the message in his mind. Why are you here, human? Are you threat or curiosity? Rowan sent a calm thought back. I explore. I learn. I do not wish harm. The dragon paused, its eyes narrowing, studying him. Then it gestured with its claws, and smaller dragons moved to lead Rowan to a central platform. There, he was enclosed in a field of glowing energy. It wasn't solid like walls, but he could not move past it. He tried pushing, kicking, even swinging his sword, but the barrier held firm. It vibrated lightly as if alive, responding to every motion he made. Rowan realized the dragons had thought of everything. This was no ordinary prison. Hours passed, and Rowan observed. The dragons moved gracefully across the platforms, communicating silently with pulses of energy. He noticed patterns. They paused at certain points. Their attention focused on the glowing crystals embedded in the walls. Some devices emitted light in sync with the dragon's pulses. Rowan's mind raced. There had to be a way to use these patterns to find a weakness or an opportunity. Humans were small, yes, but observation and creativity were their greatest weapons. He began experimenting. He tapped lightly on the barrier, testing its reactions. He moved objects nearby, watching how the dragons responded. Slowly, he realized the prison reacted differently depending on the dragon's focus. When they were distracted, the energy pulses weakened slightly. Rowan's heart leapt. Even the most advanced system had limits, and humans were good at noticing limits. While he studied, he also learned more about the dragon's behavior. They were not mindless predators. They had rituals, rules, and a strict hierarchy. The largest dragon seemed to be a leader, and the others followed its signals perfectly. Rowan understood that this was a society, not just a hunting party. If he could learn their language, even partially, he might communicate or negotiate. One evening, the chamber's lights dimmed, and the dragons rested on the floating platforms. Rowan seized a moment. He moved cautiously along the edges, studying the patterns of the energy fields. His sword could not break them, but maybe timing and movement could. He noticed that when the dragons emitted a pulse together, the barrier shimmered, then solidified for a moment. Timing would be critical if he wanted to act. Rowan also explored the platform itself. Crystals in the floor glowed in a rhythm, and he realized they connected to the larger energy system. If he could redirect even a small pulse, it might create a moment of distraction. His mind worked quickly, calculating angles, distances, and timing. Humans were not the strongest, but they could solve problems others could not. As he tested his ideas, the dragons occasionally checked on him. He would freeze, holding his position, sending calm, neutral thoughts to show he meant no harm. The leader dragon tilted its head, and Rowan felt a pulse of curiosity pass through him. It seemed to sense that he was learning, adapting. That was enough to keep him alive for now. Days passed, and Rowan grew stronger in mind and spirit. He understood the patterns, the rituals, and even small weaknesses in the dragon's vigilance. He began to experiment with small movements during moments when the dragons rested, learning to navigate the energy field without triggering it fully. He knew he could not fight them head-on, but he could outthink them. One night, a strange energy storm began outside the fortress. Lightning flashed across the alien sky, striking the floating platforms and causing the crystals to glow brighter than ever. The dragons hissed and moved nervously. Rowan felt a spark of hope. The storm disrupted their telepathy slightly, making the energy fields flicker. For the first time, he sensed a real opportunity to act. He crouched, observing carefully. The dragons were alert but distracted. His knowledge, his patience, and his careful observation had brought him to this moment. Humans might be fragile and small compared to alien dragons, but they could learn, adapt, and seize chances where others would fail. Rowan's hands tightened on his sword. A plan was forming. He could escape, using the dragon's own patterns against them. It would be risky, but humans thrived on risk when it was paired with intelligence. The storm outside was temporary, and the dragons would recover, so he had only a small window. He stood tall, looking at the glowing energy fields, the dragons resting on their platforms and the strange, humming crystals. He felt the human spark inside him, the courage, the creativity, the determination that carried his ancestors through impossible odds. This was a prison, yes, but also a classroom, and Rowan was learning faster than the dragons expected. The storm raged outside, and Rowan whispered to himself, "This is my chance. I will survive. I will learn, and I will turn this against them." For the first time since the capture, Rowan smiled. Humans were not the strongest, but humans were clever. And cleverness could be just as powerful as fire, wings, or telepathy. The storm outside the floating fortress grew stronger. Purple clouds swirled across the alien sky, lightning flashing in jagged lines that reflected in the crystal walls. Sir Rowan crouched on the edge of the glowing platform, watching the dragons carefully. They moved with precision, wings slicing the air, eyes glowing, scanning every corner. But the storm was changing something. He could feel it in the energy hum of the fortress. It was different, unstable. Rowan's heart raced. He had observed the dragons for days and understood their patterns. They were powerful, intelligent, and careful, but no creature or system was perfect. Even dragons could be affected by forces beyond their control. And now, the storm was interfering with their telepathy and the energy barriers around him. The glowing fields flickered, pulsing unevenly, leaving small gaps that could be exploited. He moved slowly, testing one weak point in the barrier. His sword hummed with the energy of the crystals as he tapped it lightly. The field shimmered and flickered in response, but did not fully release him. Rowan realized that the storm had created an unpredictable moment, a miracle in his favor. He needed to act quickly, but carefully. Humans could seize opportunities that others missed. That was their strength. Above him, the dragons shifted nervously. Their synchronized pulses were broken by the energy surges from the storm. Rowan felt a rush of hope. He whispered to himself, "This is it. This is a chance I've been waiting for." He could almost feel the energy of the fortress bending slightly in response to the cosmic storm outside. Timing and ingenuity would make all the difference. Rowan crouched and studied the dragon's movements. They were still powerful, but distracted, Their eyes flickered toward the windows of the fortress, where lightning danced and their energy pulses pulsed unevenly. The largest dragon, the leader, raised its wings, trying to stabilize the telepathy that connected the others. Rowan could sense its frustration. Humans might not have fire or wings, but humans could think, improvise, and act when the moment demanded it. Rowan picked up a small crystal from the floor, humming with energy. He noticed that when it touched the flickering barrier, it amplified the disruption. He carefully moved it toward a weak spot in the energy cage around him. Sparks ran along the surface as the barrier shimmered and wavered. He realized that the combination of his actions and the storm had created a real chance to escape. The dragons hissed and flared, sensing the instability, but it was too late for them to stop him. Rowan pushed the crystal fully against the barrier. Light flared, and the energy field wavered, creating a gap just large enough for him to slip through. His heart pounded as he ducked and ran, keeping low to avoid the dragon's view. The storm outside crackled, lightning striking nearby platforms, creating shadows and distractions. Humans were small, yes, but clever, and Rowan was clever. One of the smaller dragons swooped down, sensing movement. Rowan dug behind a glowing pillar of crystal. Sparks in the storm reflected in the dragon's eyes. He held his breath, watching the creature twist and turn, trying to locate him. Then, lightning struck the platform nearby, sending a shock wave through the chamber. The dragon hissed, recoiling, and Rowan seized opportunity. He ran along the side, using the shadows and the flickering light to stay hidden. As he moved, Rowan realized a miracle was not just a storm. It was human timing and ingenuity. He combined his understanding of the dragons, the fortress, and the energy fields with the natural chaos around him. That was something no alien could predict. Humans could think fast, act fast, and improvise solutions in ways that larger, stronger, or more advanced creatures might not anticipate. Rowan reached the central bridge of light that led to the outer platforms. The storm flared again, stronger this time, and the crystal floors pulsed with energy. He sprinted, leaping across gaps in the platforms, using the light and shadows to his advantage. One dragon swooped down again, but he ducked behind a beam of glowing energy just in time. The dragon's claws struck the empty air, and Rowan smiled. Humans could be unpredictable, and that unpredictability was a weapon. Finally, he reached the edge of the fortress, where a small teleportation platform hovered above the alien world. He had seen it before, used by the dragons to move between the floating structures. Now, the storm's energy made it unstable, flickering but functional. Rowan stepped carefully onto the platform. Sparks ran along his boots as the energy hummed beneath him. The dragons hissed and flared above, but he activated the platform, sending a pulse of human energy through it, combined with the storm's power. In a flash of light, Rowan was transported to a hidden chamber on the fortress edge. The dragons circled above, confused and frustrated. The cosmic storm outside had disrupted their coordination and technology long enough for him to escape the main prison. Rowan's chest heaved, sweat mixing with the rain that seeped into the open windows of the floating fortress. He looked around the new chamber. It was smaller, but it gave him space to think and act. The dragons would recover, but Rowan had learned something vital. Humans had survived not by strength alone, but by observation, timing, courage, and ingenuity. The miracle had happened. Not magic, not luck, but the combination of a natural event and human skill. Rowan crouched, feeling the human spark of determination inside him. He had a path now, a way to turn the situation around. The dragons might be powerful and intelligent, but humans had something they could not fully predict: creativity and adaptability. Rowan smiled, gripping his sword. The next steps would be risky, yes, but now he had the advantage of choice. The storm raged outside, lightning crackling across the alien sky, illuminating the floating fortress in bright flashes. Rowan whispered to himself, "This is my chance. I will survive. I will turn this against them." The miracle had appeared, and it had given a human the power to act. And Rowan knew, deep in his heart, that humans could rise even in the most impossible situations. Sir Rowan crouched in the small chamber, catching his breath as lightning flashed across the alien sky. The storm outside was wild, but he no longer felt fear. The dragons had been disrupted, confused by the cosmic energy, and that gave him an advantage. He could feel it. Humans might be smaller and weaker than dragons, but humans could think, improvise, and act faster than anything else. That was his greatest weapon. He looked around the chamber. Strange crystals lined the walls, glowing softly, pulsing with energy from the storm. Machines hummed quietly, their purpose unclear, but Rowan had learned to observe, analyze, and adapt quickly. Every object could be used. Every tool could become a weapon. His mind raced, combining what he knew about the dragon's patterns, the fortress layout, and the fluctuating energy fields. Rowan picked up a small crystal from the floor. It vibrated faintly in his hand. He touched it to a nearby energy conduit, and the pulse from the storm traveled through it. Sparks leapt across the walls, creating small arcs of light that made shadows dance around the chamber. He smiled. The dragons relied on precision, on control. Chaos was human territory. From above, a dragon swooped down, its eyes glowing, scanning the chamber. Rowan ducked behind a large crystal pillar. The dragon hissed and flared its wings, sending a gust of wind, but Rowan stayed low. He pushed the crystal conduit toward the floor and touched it to the energy panel. Sparks shot out, hitting the dragon's wing. The dragon roared in surprise and pain, flapping back. Rowan realized that even the strongest creatures could be affected by careful, creative use of their own environment. He moved quickly. The storm created shadows and distractions, and Rowan used them to slip past another dragon guarding the main corridor. He had memorized the patterns during his imprisonment. The dragon's movements were synchronized, predictable when observed carefully. Humans could notice details that even intelligent aliens might overlook. Rowan ran along a narrow platform, leaping from one glowing crystal to another, the storm providing cover with flashes of light and thunder. Ahead, he saw a control panel connected to the fortress's main energy fields. Rowan studied it for a moment. Symbols flashed across the screen in alien language, but the logic was clear. Energy flowed here, and if he could redirect it, even partially, it would create a massive distraction for the dragons. Rowan grinned. Humans did not need to understand every detail. They only needed to act smart and fast. He pressed several switches, carefully timing each one with the lightning outside. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and suddenly, when the floating platform shuddered, dropping slightly, a dragon perched there hissed, claws scraping as it tried to regain balance. Rowan took the moment to move forward, slipping past the others with speed and caution. The dragons were powerful, but they were confused now, reacting to his unpredictable moves. Humans thrived on unpredictability. Rowan reached a section where the teleportation pads connected to the outer platforms. He studied the layout. One dragon blocked the nearest pad, waiting to intercept him. He scanned quickly and noticed a secondary pad that led to a hidden exit. It required a sequence of energy inputs, something a human could figure out by observing the patterns. Rowan's fingers moved quickly, pressing buttons, redirecting power, and using the storm's energy as amplification. A flash of light, and the teleportation pad activated. Rowan leapt onto it just as a dragon lunged for him. The pad hummed, pulling him into a bright vortex of energy. He felt a rush of wind, heat, and power, and then he was on a hidden platform on the fortress's edge. The dragon landed nearby, snarling, but Rowan was already moving. His mind raced faster than the creature's wings. Humans could improvise, adapt, and act quickly in ways no dragon expected. Rowan spotted an energy bridge connecting to a lower platform. The storm outside made the crystals pulse wildly. He could use it to his advantage. Timing each step with flashes of lightning, he ran across the bridge. Sparks jumped between the crystals as he passed, creating a dazzling barrier of light that confused the dragons. They hesitated, unsure where he would appear next. Humans could think in ways the aliens could not predict, and Rowan used that to move quickly. One dragon tried to flank him, but Rowan had anticipated it. He kicked a small crystal into the air. It collided with another, creating a blinding flash of light that temporarily stunned the dragon. Rowan ran past it, heart pounding, but mind focused. This was not strength. It was cleverness, strategy, and courage. Humans could overcome odds that seemed impossible by using their brains. Finally, He reached the outermost platform. A teleportation gate hovered above the alien world, leading to a safer zone beyond the fortress. Rowan could see the storm's energy making the dragon's telepathy unstable. They roared in frustration, but could not track him precisely. He stepped onto the pad, activating it with a final pulse of energy. Sparks flew, and in a flash, he disappeared from the fortress. Rowan landed safely on the distant cliffside, breathing hard, but smiling. The dragon circled the fortress, confused and frustrated, unable to predict his next move. Humans were not the strongest, yes, but they were clever, adaptive, and courageous. That combination could defeat even the most intelligent creatures when used wisely. Rowan knew that he had turned the tables, not with force, but with ingenuity. He looked up at the storm-lit sky, at the floating fortress where dragons still roared and flared and felt pride. Humans could survive, even thrive, in situations that seemed impossible. They could think, act, and improvise in ways others could not. Rowan realized this was more than escape. It was a demonstration of human potential. He clenched his fists, feeling the human spark of determination. The dragons were powerful, yes, but humans had something unique: brains, courage, and adaptability. And that was enough to strike back. Rowan whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning. Humans can face anything." The wind from the storm whipped past him, and lightning flashed across the horizon. Rowan turned, ready to move forward. He had survived, he had outsmarted the dragons, and he was stronger now. Humans were small, yes, but cleverness, courage, and heart made them unstoppable. Rowan smiled. The next challenge awaited, and he was ready. Sir Rowan stood on the cliff, looking back at the floating fortress. The storm had passed, leaving the alien skies streaked with soft purples and golds. The dragon circled the fortress slowly, still unsettled from the chaos he had caused. Rowan knew they were powerful and intelligent, but for the first time, he felt a sense of respect from them, even if he could not fully understand it yet. Humans were small, yes, but clever, adaptable, and brave. That was what had given him this moment of victory. He took a deep breath and studied the dragons. The leader hovered near the edge of the fortress, watching him intently. Its eyes glowed brightly, but there was no aggression, only curiosity. Rowan realized something important. The dragons respected action and intelligence, not just strength. Humans could survive and even win against beings far stronger, simply by using brains, courage, and timing. That was a miracle that had appeared during the storm, and it had proven human ingenuity could rival alien might. Rowan lowered his sword slightly and stepped forward, signaling that he meant no harm. The dragon's eyes flickered, as if it understood. Slowly, it moved closer, landing on a nearby platform with grace. Rowan took another step. His heart pounded, but he did not hesitate. Humans could not fight every battle with force. Sometimes, victory required trust, courage, and understanding. The leader dragon exhaled a soft, vibrating hum. Rowan felt a strained connection through his mind, not words, but emotions, images, and a sense of awareness. The dragon was communicating, acknowledging that he was clever, brave, and worthy of respect. Rowan realized the same could happen with the smaller dragons. Intelligence could be challenged, but respect could be earned. Humans had something the dragons did not fully understand: moral courage and empathy. Rowan extended his hand slowly, showing he meant peace. The dragon hesitated, then lowered its massive head, brushing it lightly against his shoulder. A warm sensation ran through him. He had gained the trust of a creature far stronger than himself, not through force, but through understanding, timing, and ingenuity. Humans could forge bonds even in impossible situations, and that bond now existed between him and the dragon. As Rowan stood there, the storm clouds faded completely, revealing the vast alien world below. Floating islands, jagged mountains, and glowing forests stretched as far as he could see. He realized that humans were not alone in the universe. They can encounter incredible beings and still thrive. Adaptability, courage, and clever thinking were tools that could turn danger into opportunity. Rowan smiled, feeling pride not just in himself, but in humanity. The smaller dragons began to descend, circling closer, curious but cautious. Rowan noticed that they mimicked the leader's behavior, studying him but not attacking. He knew that earning the respect of one intelligent creature could influence others. Humans might be small, fragile, and inexperienced in the wider universe, but cleverness and bravery could earn allies in even the most unlikely forms. Rowan nodded slowly. This was more than survival. It was a star of understanding. He walked toward the teleportation platform that could take him back to the human colony. The leader dragon followed him, moving gracefully but keeping a careful distance. Rowan realized they were not enemies now. They were partners of sorts, bound by mutual respect. Humans might not have wings or scales or fire, but they had something the dragons could never fully predict: creativity, courage, and heart. As Rowan activated the teleportation pad, he glanced back at the dragon. The leader tilted its head, almost in acknowledgement, and the smaller dragons hovered silently. Rowan felt a surge of hope. Perhaps humans and dragons could learn from each other, fight together, and face challenges that neither species could conquer alone. He stepped onto the pad, feeling the familiar hum of energy as it activated. A bright flash of light surrounded him, and he was transported to a safe plateau on the alien world, away from the fortress. The dragons remained in the sky, observing, but they did not pursue. Rowan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the adventure behind him and the promise of new possibilities ahead. Humans had faced creatures far stronger, used intelligence and courage to survive, and earned respect in a universe that had seemed hostile and impossible. Rowan looked at the distant horizon. Stars were beginning to appear in the twilight sky. He understood now that the universe was vast and full of dangers, but also full of opportunities. Humans had the power to face the unknown, to learn, to adapt, and turn impossible situations into victories. He had experienced it firsthand, and he knew it was only the beginning. He touched his chest, feeling the heartbeat that had carried him through danger after danger. Humans were fragile, yes, but inside that fragility was courage, intelligence, and determination. Those qualities had saved him, allowed him to outthink the dragons, and forge a bond that could last into the future. Rowan realized that humans' true power was not in their weapons, their size, or their strength, but in their mind, heart, and spirit. The dragon leader roared softly, a sound that was not threatening, but proud. Rowan smiled. Humans had turned a capture into a victory, not just by surviving, but by using ingenuity, courage, and understanding. That was the miracle. It had happened because humans could adapt, think, and act when nothing else seemed possible. Rowan mounted his horse, looking at the dragons one last time. They hovered in the sky, watching silently. The universe was vast, strange, and sometimes dangerous, but humans could rise to meet it. Courage, intelligence, and heart were their greatest weapons, and Rowan had proven it. As he rode toward the horizon, the sun broke fully across the alien sky, bathing everything in golden light. Rowan felt a new sense of purpose. Humans could face the unknown, build bonds with the strongest creatures, and survive against odds that seemed impossible. The dragons were no longer just captors. They were witnesses to human strength, creativity, and bravery. Rowan whispered softly, "This is just the beginning." The universe was wide, the challenges many, and the adventures endless. Humans had the power to rise, to survive, and to thrive. And with courage, intelligence, and heart, no obstacle would be too great. For the first time, Rowan felt that humans could truly belong in the stars. And with the dragons watching from above, he knew they had earned a place not just in survival, but in respect, partnership, and the promise of future victories.